work with ACPS to expand upon the use of Dash by students going to and from school and after school or school adjacent activities. There actually very recently as last night, was a directive memo issued, which was voted in favor by all 7 council members, including the 2 newly seated ones, one of them being Abdel, who served with you on this committee. And that directive is to the city staff and to work with us at Dash and ACPS to establish the viability of transitioning more, if not all, of pupil transportation around particularly the high school age students, not focused so much on elementary and middle school. That's a more challenging component, but to offload, I think the goal ultimately being 100% of student transportation that is high school age to be using Dash. So big opportunity there, but lots and lots of moving parts. This is very fresh, just as recently as today. Conversations are going on around that, and I'll keep this committee updated as to the conversations that occur there. And then finally, just from the perspective of the Dash board and sort of what's going on there, we will be having a stockholders meeting coming up in the next couple of months. That typically happens in the early spring. We have yet to establish a date. You all are more than welcome to attend for that as a public meeting. And it is the annual meeting with the stockholders, so City Council. It's an opportunity for us to highlight the successes of Dash. We continue to see record-breaking ridership, which will be discussed probably later in this meeting. I believe Martin is going to be doing a presentation. So we've had a lot of success all around. I will say that as we may have discussed the last time we were together, the caveat around that increased use of Dash is that buses are crowded. I actually in my vehicle have a radio that's connected in with the Dash network, and when I have it on, I can hear what's going on. And I remember on Monday hearing multiple buses notifying dispatch that they were full. So that is going to continue to be a challenge for us, and something we're going to look very closely at as we try to determine how Dash can be a participant in solving the pupil transportation needs for Alexandria City High School in particular, considering the directive of the memo that came from City Council. So those are really my highlights. Happy to answer any questions and provide any insights from the committee that I can help with.
Hey, any questions from the people here at Dash headquarters?
Oh, this is Jason. I just want to say Josh, that's really great news about the memorandum, because I really think expanding that relationship and formalizing that relationship with the school is really fantastic, because then we can explore ideas of, maybe the bus having to stop at the actual high school itself. That it takes that congestion away from the Bradley Center, which is causing all the congestion and issues there. So I'm pretty excited about that, because I really think that's not just I think it's a really smart idea, but I think it's also a very economical idea, and I think it's a very practical idea. So I'm pretty stoked about that. So thanks for that update, Josh. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
And I'll just add congratulations on the continued success with ridership. Any other questions from people online? Just speak up if you have any.
I just wanted to ask, what do you see as a pathway between the 1% approved year-over-year increases versus the 4% staff? Are you somehow, I'm guessing that the offset of costs for operations, as far as like materials, buses themselves, is not offsetting that enough?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is potentially a very challenging thing for us to solve. If the city is not able to identify revenue sources that can support the mandated increases, and this is strictly around current services, there is a couple of potential paths. I think one is Well, the ideal is that they are able to come up with the funds that support current services. Now, that is certainly going to make supplementals much more challenging considering the environment. So there are certainly supplementals that are out there that are related to the ATV, the 2022 new Dash Network plan, and then the plan further out. But frankly, if they're not able to identify the funding, the only ways that we can balance that is by reducing service. There are a number of scenarios that we have worked internally that could potentially solve for that issue. That has not been brought to the board at this point because we have not gotten far enough along in the budget process to understand what the potential implications are regarding the city's ability to cover that year-over-year increase. But Dash is, as we've talked about quite a bit, the overwhelming majority of our budget is direct operating expenses. So personnel, number one, our maintenance services, everything that goes into putting the buses on the street. Outside of that, frankly, I don't know what the solutions are. Dash does not have the ability to generate revenue of that magnitude, and even restoring fares would not accomplish that. Because of the enormous costs associated with re-implementing fare collection, and frankly, the viability of it just from the perspective of how our customers are used to riding now, and then asking them to pay would, on top of the cost, be an insurmountable challenge. So we're watching it very closely. We've been very candid. The reductions that were potential last year are the same potential reductions this year if the funding is lacking. And those are going to be, services that are already not as frequent as we need them to be. They have low ridership partially because they're not frequent enough. They're more tailored towards commuting, but with the incoming administration, we're not sure what the potential is regarding the additional load on Dash as far as commuter traffic. So there's just a lot of moving parts there, but it's a good question. I wish I had a clear answer. The reality is that we need to wait and see what the city is able to come up with. The manager's budget presentation comes out in February. We'll get those numbers then, and then the real work begins as far as figuring out if there is a gap, what is that gap? How are we going to solve for it? And then potentially, if we need to, how are we going to advocate to City Council to restore that reduction, if that is in fact something that the riders, the community, and the board and the committee want to push for.
Yeah, thank you.
Josh, one follow-up question, really from this conversation as well as the September. You mentioned the manager as well as our elected officials are very focused on the economic health of the city and things to contribute to economic development. I'm sure in your meetings with him, you made that point. I guess my question is, do you think it's received? To what degree do you think that the manager maybe better understands now than he did a year ago that increasing service is actually an investment in Alexandria's economic health?
My take in my conversations with the manager is that he's incredibly supportive of Dash. I think he is trying to balance the needs across the city, and that certainly those needs can go up against the investments in Dash. We did circulate, and if Camilla, I'm not sure if you got this committee a copy of those infographics, but if you all haven't seen it, that's something that we would want to get to you. But we did some economic benefits of transit and Dash and sort of how we're driving the economy. Jim, I anticipate that in the coming budget cycle, we will do more of that, more focused around the supplementals, assuming we don't see reductions. If we see reductions, we're going to need to really speak to the economic value of retaining those services as well as the social value and and the fundamental needs that the city has for those services. But yes, ultimately, transit brings back more money than is invested in it. So for every dollar, you're seeing, I can't remember what the exact number was, $1.30 or something like that in returns. And so it is an economic investment. And the other thing, a part of the conversation is Eisenhower. As we know, the needs to invest more in dash services in that corridor and the potential development opportunities for the city, which will build the tax base and whatnot, are real. And so that is a part of the conversation. I think the people that I've spoken with get that. The challenge is how to fund it on day one with the reality that that's going to come in later. And I think that, I think that's understood. To the degree which they're willing or able to do it is still a question mark.
Thank you very much for that answer to the question and for the overall update. Any other questions?
I had one. This is Bonnie. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Bonnie.
Okay, thank you. I'm never sure whether I'm on mute or not. Anyway, it seemed like you got the service up and running pretty quickly after the recent snowstorm. And I was just wondering if you had any problems or issues that we should know about.
So good question. Thank you, Bonnie. We were very proud to have been one of the only systems to operate during the snowstorm and the only system that did not deviate from our planned service profile, which was a Sunday service. The team worked really, really hard to accomplish that. The coordination with the city was excellent. We did not have any major incidents. We had a couple of buses get stuck. We were able to free those fairly quickly. Those were often just based on the configuration of the road, not so much an issue with the driver or the snow clearing. The snow was a light snow, so it was, I mean, there was a lot of it, but it was a cold snow, which is actually better. Our buses can get more traction in that because of their weight. So I think that was helpful. We had a couple of slips, trips, and falls, customer related. It's not clear to me. As far as I understand, no customers sought any kind of medical assistance. So they sound like they were minor slips. But we were very conscientious of watching for that. Regrettably, frankly, I think one of the things we've talked about and that we are going to continue to talk about is the challenge of clearing bus stops. Bus stops are under the purview of the city, and it is just not something that we've ever been able to get the resources to. So to this day, we still have bus stops with snowpack and ice in them, which is almost impossible to clear when it's this frozen. But we are seeing that. We see that regionally as an issue. So we're going to continue to talk about that and see if maybe there's some dash resources that can be allocated towards that in the future.
Thank you. That snow didn't feel all that light when I shoveled it, but I'll take your word for it. Thank you.
Yes, you're right. It was a heavy snow in that regard, but the type of snow allowed the buses to push through it pretty well. So yeah, buses are.
Right, thank you very much.
I think Yvette may have had one question.
Yeah, I just want to zoom out and say that DAC has been around for 3 years, 4 years. What do you think that are there things that we should start doing, stop doing, and continue doing as we move forward, and then we'll have a new chair on the horizon?
Thank you for that question. I know there will be conversation around that regarding the selection of your chair, and we look forward to seeing the DAC continue to evolve. To me, the most important thing that the DAC does is help us to represent our ridership, the needs of the ridership, the priorities of the ridership, the successes and the challenges. We love having you alongside of us as a representative also of DASH and helping us to make that link. But at the very core, it is really critical that this group is really looking at everything that you talk about and everything from the perspective of the lens of the riders, and helping both DASH staff and external entities to understand what the needs and priorities are. At the end of the day, this is your committee, it is your priorities for you to identify. I will say that one of the things, Camilla and I actually spoke about this earlier this week, as you go into a new chairship, is I encourage you all to look at similar entities with other transit systems. WMATA has a robust rider advisory committee. Meetings are online, information is posted, agendas, membership, applications, have conversations with your peers. What are the things that they're finding success with? Maryland also has some examples. I know Raymond got his start in his career serving on a DAC, a similar entity. So, you know, it is important for us to hear from you and to hear from you from the lens of the rider. And I charge you all and your staff liaison, Camilla, to find ways to provide feedback to us, to learn about what we're doing, but also to speak to things that you see out there that we're doing that are both working and not working. Because that is an opportunity for us to figure out where our focus needs to be. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I will let you get along with your meeting, Jim, as your vice chair, and let you all sort out what you're going to do next. And I look forward to the continued evolution of this group and the continued work. And I thank you for serving. And just remember, we're always looking for additional members. So please help us recruit for them too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh.
Have a good evening.
Camilla, you take the floor for
Yes.
election.
Yes, so for the election of the DAC chair, I sent an email, a few reminders, just asking people for self-nomination. We did receive a nomination, and that is Nathaniel Cartagena. So that was the only nomination that we received. If no one is opposed, and if you want to move forward with him as a chair, then we can start the discussion.
Okay, I'll let you, as vice chair and acting as interim chair, I'll entertain any other nominations at this point. If anybody wants to self-nominate or nominate anybody else. In the room, I'm seeing some shaking of the heads for no. And so then I'll entertain a motion to maybe vote Nathaniel as the new chair. That's how I go.
I'll make the nomination of Nathaniel as the new chair of the desk.
It's moved his nomination, and so a second.
I'll second. This is Bonnie.
Thank you, Bonnie and Eric, for the second. And any discussion? And then I guess before I open it to the floor, Nathaniel, would you like to tell us a little bit about your thoughts? And just or we can take a vote first.
I mean,
Go ahead and introduce yourself. Not everybody may remember meeting you since we meet so infrequently.
yeah, I can maybe give a quick background on myself. You know, I came to the DC area, and not being a public transit user, and especially during the pre-pandemic, became a very heavy user. The pandemic did switch me to a remote user, so a remote worker. So I'm now more of a casual transit person in general, but I am very passionate about public transit as a means of equity, health, and economic prosperity for a place. And I feel very strongly that this type of role is a place where all of us as citizens of Alexandria can help contribute to the city in those ways. I think I sent this in my email to Camilla. I do think there are members of this committee that are more qualified to be the chair, but I promise that I will work very diligently and carefully and thoughtfully. And I think one of the things that I want to try to do if we proceed with setting me as the chair is get a chance to, separately from the advisory committee meetings, meet with each of you one-to-one, for 15 minutes just to chat. I know all of you knew Ross very well, but I would love to get a chance to talk with you all and get a better sense of who you are, what you're really looking for out of the committee. And I think the second piece that was already set up very nicely for me was that I do think that we should be looking at some of the other groups that was talked about. I can't remember if it was the previous or the one before, these other ridership groups that exist. I think we should take a moment to reflect on what they're doing and what their success is, and kind of meld that with what we're able to learn in the discussion. So hopefully you're able to hear me okay, and that'll make sense, but happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Nathaniel? Okay, and all in favor, there's been a motion and a second. No further discussions. All in favor of Nathaniel as becoming our new chair? Say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Okay. Any abstentions? Okay, Nathaniel, the rest of the meeting is yours. And congratulations, and look forward to your leadership going forward. Over to you.
Thank you very much.
So, Nathaniel, I would love to set up a meeting with you to talk a little bit more about our vision for the DAC. Like Josh said, I met with him, and he has some goals and things that we can help evolve the DAC. So I'm happy to meet with you, also with my team, to get to know you a little bit more and kind of brainstorm ideas of things that we can add to the meetings. And Jim, thank you so much for being the interim chair during this month.
Thanks.
I was going to ask, I will do my best remotely, but I don't know, Jim, if it might make sense for this meeting for you to just guide us through. It may be easier for an in-room person to guide us through this meeting.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I'm going to start off with one quick sort of side action for Camilla. So I was previously elected vice chair. I don't know, I don't think we have a provision for annual re-election, so I'm going to just continue as vice chair.
I second that.
And I'm happy to let somebody else step up, trust me. My apologies to those who sent me email that I didn't get a chance to either see or act on. The next item on the agenda is the ridership update by Martin, and then the bus stop update by Martin, and really a discussion and a vote, I think, on the bus stop piece, followed by budget presentation. So they're bringing those slides up.
Because I'm sharing my screen.
Oh, you're sharing screen.
Yeah, would you?
Can we go full screen then? Let's see. Okay, there we go. So I can, sorry, I'm just borrowing your screen, I guess, if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right.
No worries.
Well, good evening. My name is Martin Barnett, Director of Planning and Scheduling for Dash. I'm going to share a few updates from the planning side. I'm going a little off script from what was on the agenda, but I will cover all those items. 4 items I'd like to go over. One is a performance update related to ridership and reliability. Second is a preview and early look at our upcoming annual service plan. Then I'll get into bus stops, as well as one final item about a new exciting city project to update the City Hall Market Square Plaza and how that might affect our riders. So first, ridership, as we mentioned, is continuing to show quite well. The blue bars you see here is our monthly ridership for the last few years. The blue is our pre-pandemic baseline from 2017, 2019. The orange is our record-breaking 5.3 million year that we had back in FY24. And then green is the current fiscal year that we're halfway through now. And as you can see, we are trending actually above that record we had last year. So I think at this point last year, we had about 2.6 million boardings. Now we have almost 2.8 million boardings. So we're tracking quite well, hoping that will continue for another record celebration again. On-time performance is another metric that we like to keep a close eye on. There's a couple different ways to measure it, a couple different metrics that we use. Sharing this is from a third-party website you can actually access yourself. It's called Aries Metro Hero. But it tracks real-time on-time performance for our service and other services around the DC region. You can see here that pre-pandemic, we were happy to be around 90%. That was kind of where we like to be, if not higher. But in the last 2 years, we have dropped down for a couple of different reasons. One is, obviously the traffic levels that we had back in 2021, 2020 during post-pandemic were much lower than what we have now. Also with all the ridership that we are seeing, we're obviously having to stop the bus much more often. And then when it does stop, the dwell time is much longer because we have so many more people getting on and off the buses. We've got places that are very crowded, so they're kind of squeezing in and out. So we're losing some time there as well. So this is a continuing challenge that we're hoping to find ways to address. Unfortunately, a lot of it, the answer is funding, which is continues to be a challenge. The one good thing I will point out is that you can see in this graph that though we are down, we are still performing quite well in comparison to our peers around the region. This graph shows 5 of our partner agencies, all bus agencies. You can see that we continue to be above where they are. So relatively speaking, we're doing well, but we still are not quite where we want to be. So we'll continue to monitor and hopefully find ways to improve. The other metric that we like to look at for reliability is missed trips, and this has been a focal point for the last 6 months. Really, it's really started to go up, and it's due to several factors, namely the shortage of buses that we've been experiencing in recent months. We've been having some mechanical issues with several of the sub fleets that we have. So some of the buses we're having a longer deadline than we're used to, and along with some other factors, but that's kind of the main one. So we've seen a big uptick in missed trips, and we are actively working on ways that we can address that. We're hopeful that it will start to trend downward the next month or so, month or two.
Martin, what in terms of the types of buses that have been having problems, electric, non-electric, but any particular sub fleet of your total fleet that seems to be more problematic?
I'm really not the best person to speak on that. I know it's been across a couple different fleets. I think some of the newer buses we've actually been having some problems with, and that was a little bit of a surprise. And some of the older buses have been really our workhorses for the last 10 years or so, and it's starting to show a little bit. They're starting to break down a little more. The electric buses, we're continuing to work with them. They're probably not in service quite as much as we would like, so that's contributing as well. But so it's a combination of a lot of different things, I would say. Okay, moving on to the next item. So this is a little bit of an early at our service plan. Was there a question?
Oh, yes, I had one question, and you may have addressed it. I just wanted to know what's the difference between the missed trip percentage versus the definitions of the on-time performance? Is it just when we lose a bus in service?
Yeah, so thank you. I should have explained that. So thank you for asking that. So the on-time percentage is all the trips and all the checkpoints we say that we're going to serve, and it's the percentage of which arrive on time. And we define on time as either no more than 1 minute early and no more than, it's usually 5 to 7 minutes late, depending on which metric you're using. So as long as you arrive in that window, you're considered to be on time. So we like to see, like I said, 85 to 90% of our trips to meet that standard. And it's gone down. It's towards the bottom of that right now. Missed trips are literally what that sounds like. Is of our total number of trips that we're scheduled to operate, how many did we actually operate? It's usually a very, very low percentage, well under 1%. But it has gone up. So we're actively monitoring that.
Got you. Thank you so much. Now I see the access here. It makes sense. Thank you.
Sure. There was one other question, I think. Maybe Bonnie, did I hear that? Okay, well, I'll keep going then. So as I mentioned, we've got our annual service plan process every spring. So I'm giving you a preview now, but when this group reconvenes in April, we'll have the full presentation to share with you for your review and feedback. But I did want to just give you a brief preview. And I would say that this year's ATSP is a pretty busy one. As Josh mentioned, we're working through the city's budget process, so we may have some service adjustments coming out of that. Hopefully, last year we did have some potential reductions that we were able to avoid implementing, but if it does come to that, that would be the process through which they are vetted through public feedback. So there's that. There's also Metrobus, obviously is changing all of their routes at the end of June. Hopefully you guys have been following this a little bit, but the Metrobus system is in the first year of its Better Bus Network implementation. So end of June, this coming summer, there'll be completely new route names, a lot of changes to the routings. mostly good things. We were able to avoid loss of service in most cases, but that will be folded into our ATSP this year. So that's going to be part of it. We also had a recommendation from last year's service plan that we take a look at service in Alexandria to see if we can expand Dash service, especially in the northern part of Alexandria along Mount Vernon Avenue. Currently, that is served by Metrobus, but we were asked to take a look at that to see if the Dash could extend their service up to that area. So we are currently undertaking some staff evaluation of that, and that will be included in the ATSP as well. West End Transit Way continues to move forward. We're developing an operations plan with the city. So we'll be talking about that in the ATSP. And then lastly, there'll be some potential Old Town service changes. We've got ongoing efforts to improve bus stops along King Street in Old Town. That's been a focus of ours for a couple of years, and we're hoping to implement some of those changes in the next coming months and years. And then possibly some revisions of the trolley routing. We had originally planned to extend it to Eisenhower Avenue Metro. We're also looking if there's ways we could bring it back to the waterfront. So still working on those items, but those are some of the items you might see.
Martin, but I know one of the issues that has been talked about is that WMATA has been talking about eliminating the 8W. Was that eliminated or not in the latest Better Bus network?
Right. So what Jim is referencing is that in the first draft version of their final recommendation, they had eliminated that route, which I should say they eliminated parts of that route. They'd kind of combined it with other routes, but there was going to be a loss of service along Taney Avenue was the main area, along with a couple others, but Taney was the main one. I'm happy to report that we've been able, the city and Dash, been able to work with WMATA, and they've revised their proposal, so there now will be a route that covers Taney Avenue during the peak period, similar to what the 8W did before.
Thank you.
Sure.
Seems like Nathaniel has a question.
Sure, Nathaniel?
Quick question, just on the Arlandria service evaluation. I know one of the goals of Dash had been to provide accessible transit to members of the community who are in low income. My sense is that I live very near there. My sense is that there's quite a bit of low income housing there, and there's quite a contingency of folks who would benefit from that free Dash service there. And I don't know if that point has already been made, but I believe in some of the other reports I saw that this is there is a significant population there that could benefit. So I don't know if that's already been factored in.
Yes, that's a great point. That's I think one of the main reasons that we've been asked to do it and why we're trying to find ways to better serve it, because at face value, it seems like, hey, the Metro bus is there. They got the 10A, 10B running every 15 minutes. So, that should be fine. But, there is a distinct benefit to having free service instead of the Metro bus where they pay their fare. And you're right, this is a more vulnerable community. So they would be more sensitive to that fare. So yes, that's definitely part of it. And that'll be part of the analysis in the document that we present.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, Martin. So Josh kind of teed off the conversation, we're probably going to run short. There's a likelihood, but we won't know until the final decision's been made. And this meeting, this body gets together every 3 months. So it's going to happen between meetings, obviously, the budget. It's going to happen within 90 days.
February 25th, we'll know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So here's my concern, because if I remember correctly, it was our lines where we share neighborhoods too, going to the Pentagon that were at risk at the last cut. Now, and that would put us at every hour. So I guess during the holiday break, I heard a lot of negative things about Dash for the first time. Like, I've heard a few negative things, but I heard a lot this time, especially in my neighborhood, because of the potential for losing more service. So if we're going to be talking about extending services, brand new services, and then actually killing lines, that's crazy. These lines have been there for decades. And if they go every hour, but if we're focused on every 15 minutes in certain areas, it's not about equity. Let's talk about equality here. That's not right. So I really hope we're not talking about brand new expenses when we can't even do our bare minimum. I guess I'm kind of shocked and surprised.
Yeah, and if I could just address that, I think maybe just in all the requests and analysis that we do and prioritization of what we want to do going forward, the number one thing is to maintain current service. we're not in a situation where we'd be looking to expand service in one part of the city and subtract service in another. So, the only reason that we're putting forward these reductions is because the city's asking us to bring our subsidy number down. So, we do have this vision that we have long-term, where we're hoping to add service and expand in areas, but those are after we are able to maintain current service. So.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. That's easy for me to translate and send on to others. So you totally answered a question for many folks. So.
I will say, so there may be some cost neutral improvements that we would try to make.
I get that.
Like if it doesn't cost extra money, you could see an improvement. Yeah. But yeah, we wouldn't want to add service, incur extra costs if we're going to reduce the service in other places.
So that's easy to message. Thank you.
You have another topic?
Keep going.
I have a couple of questions. I'll wait till you're.
Okay, wait till the end. All right. So shifting gears a little bit, what did I finish that up? I guess the timeline, as I mentioned, is March and April. So we'll do the public feedback. So that's when this group will meet again. So we'll talk then. And then the final approval of the plan is scheduled for either May or June. And any changes will be implemented at the start of FY26, which would be July or August. Okay, we had a request to get an update on bus stops. I think hopefully some of you guys may have seen the board meeting last week. Silas Sullivan from the city provided an update to the board. So I'm kind of channeling him a little bit with this update. So Dash and WMATA Metrobus operate bus service. However, the city is responsible for maintaining those bus stops. As we were just talking about, Alex 311, if you ever have any issues with broken glass in shelters or trash cans overflowing or graffiti or anything like that, please make sure to use Alex 311 to report those, and they'll direct it to the correct parties. A quick snapshot of our current citywide bus stops. The current total of bus stops, 714 bus stops. Dash serves about 540 of those, I think. You can see the stats there. We are currently up to 64% ADA accessible, which is an increase from past years. I think we went up 5% from last year with the city working on upgrading, I think, about 30 or so stops to ADA compliant with adding pads or removing parking. So really good progress there. We've also been adding benches. So we're up to 55% of stops with benches, and about 1 in every 5 stops has a shelter, which hopefully will continue to increase as well. When we talk about bus, and Jim, I feel like you could do this presentation too. I know this is your bread and butter. Yeah. So when we talk about bus stops, we look at accessibility and amenities. Is everyone able to get to the stop? Is there a level boarding surface that's concrete? It's not a mud pit. Is there a sidewalk that connects to a crosswalk so they can get to the surrounding neighborhood? Is there a curb space that's open, or is there parked cars there that are blocking when the bus wants to go in there and pick someone up? So that's when we talk about accessibility, and then amenities, we're talking about shelters, benches, trash cans, lighting, real-time information signs that show you when the next bus is coming. All of those things are factored in. So these pictures are meant to be examples of some of the challenges, I'll say, that we face around the city with, parked cars blocking bus stops, stops that are not ADA accessible. I got a picture of this one right here. You can see there's actually a milk crate there that someone has been using as a bench. So anytime I see that, I'm always like, so the city is working hard to expand its program amenities, and some of the projects that they're doing towards that end, I can highlight here. First, I want to highlight they've actually recently launched a website. I don't have the URL because it's kind of long, but if you just Google Alexandria bus stop program, you will easily find it. It's got a whole bunch of information about some of the programs they're working on. And the best part is it has an interactive map. So you can actually click on the map, find your exact stop, and it will see the characteristics of, if it's got a shelter, if it's accessible, and that type of thing. So definitely check that out if you have a minute. We'll hopefully work with the city to continue to build that out as kind of a way of measuring our progress in terms of accessibility and amenities, how many benches we have, because we want those numbers to continue to go up. City has a couple other projects they're doing. They've had an ongoing federal grant from the CMAQ program to install 20 shelters. Actually, it's 40 shelters, I believe. This is the second phase of the project. And they're hoping those will be completed around the city by 2027. We also are expecting to get some state grant funding from the TRIP program, about $500,000 for next fiscal year. That'll go towards a range of bus stop improvements, shelters, benches, pads, those kinds of things. So looking forward to hopefully getting that money and moving forward. The pictures on the right show some of the ADA upgrades and parking removals that have been done in the last couple months. City's been very active in this front. You can see the image there is from Park Center Drive. There's a big pad there. We have a lot of boardings there. So glad that that's now ADA accessible. There's been a lot of parking spaces removed, especially like Alexandria and some other places over the last few months that have made stops ADA accessible. We also have a lot of real-time information displays that you see around the city. You can see an example in the bottom right of one. These are most of them are solar powered. You see kind of a panel on the top of the bus stop pole, and then you've got the display there. It looks like a little iPad mounted to the stop pole, and it shows you based on the actual vehicle locations when your next bus is going to arrive. So we're trying to expand those. I think we've got those signs or similar versions of those signs at about 70 stops around the city, and that continues to grow. We had 10 more that just got installed in the last few weeks. And those 10 were based on 395 commuter choice grant funding. So it did not a dime of city money. It was all from the I-385 toll revenues.
Sorry, so those ones are Dash property.
Yes, those are Dash property. Yep, but they show both Metro bus and Dash routes. Beyond that, just highlighting the better bus network from WMATA. The city is working very closely with WMATA to, some of the route changes require bus stop improvements, so they're working on that. And then and that's for the June implementation. And then lastly, the King Street bus stop improvements. We've continued, I think we've brought this before this group before, but we're working on ways to improve the accessibility and amenities on King Street in Old Town. That is one of our most challenging corridors in the city, I'd say. And it's also the one where we have the most service in terms of frequency, routes, and then ridership as well. So a lot of bang for the buck if we can bring those stops up to ADA accessible standards and to add amenities. It's just a little bit challenging with all the parking there and the space. So hopefully there'll be some movement on that in the coming months. All I can share right now. Any questions on those? Oops. Okay, and the last slide I have here is just I wanted to let you guys make sure you guys were aware of this. This is an effort by the city to renovate the Market Square Plaza and City Hall. It's a long time coming. I think they wanted to do it before the pandemic, but it got delayed because of the pandemic. It's obviously a very old building, and the plaza has been there for quite a while. The parking garage has some maintenance challenges, so they're trying to renovate and redesign it and seeking public input. So this is an opportunity for us, we feel, to upgrade the stops there because we have a lot of riders. Depending on the day you look at, it can be up to 1,000 boardings in a single day at the 4 stops right along in both directions along the City Hall frontage. So a lot of people getting on there. That is the closest stop to the waterfront. So people are going down to the waterfront. They're not just going to City Hall. So we have a lot of users there, and unfortunately, the stops are not great. You don't have any shelter. Some of them aren't ADA accessible. No seating options really to speak of other than the stairs, which is not a great option when you're waiting for the trolley there or what have you. So I wanted to share this. They're going through the public outreach process. I think they just wrapped up a round, but they're still accepting public feedback. So if you want to go check it out, alexandriava.gov/City Hall, they have some conceptual designs there. They don't show a lot of information about the buses, but I think it's important for them to hear from people that access that site by bus. Because I think they're thinking a lot about the art and the activations and the spaces for like the farmers market and things, and not as much about some of our bus users. So
Martin, in terms of this, are there some of the designs looking at providing actual shelters for bus riders at the
yes,
because that's one of the things that just seems like a crying shame. You've got all the space for things like various bikes and stuff, but you have no bus shelter, which is just a blasphemy in my view.
Well said. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, we're definitely looking at an opportunity in the designs that we're starting to see do all include shelters. We've made that clear that anything has to have a shelter. This is not just a high ridership stop, it's a high profile stop. For a city that really touts its great transit system, this is a great opportunity for them to incorporate design elements that would help bus users.
The city will be challenged to make sure that they fit in with the historic nature of those. Is that right? Imagine this could be a special design.
Yep.
All right, and so are you asking DAC members for us individually to weigh in on a website? So there's a lot of comments about the importance of this, or you're looking for a DAC letter or both?
I was going to leave that a little bit up to you. I just want to at least make sure you guys were aware of this. And yeah.
I do want to let the people know that there is a survey and it's closing January 31st. So there's still time to provide feedback and to take a look at the refined concepts. And I can send the link, once I send the presentation, I can send the link to that survey too.
That'd be great if you would.
If you'd include the.
Yeah, 'cause I do want to kind of add to what you just said, Jim, because, 70%, I could be plus or minus a couple percentages here, but 70% of Alexandria is residential. And so a lot of these bus stops are right in front of someone's house, like literally, and the bus stops I've seen on here. Now, I'm definitely gonna go to the website. I'll go there tonight and check out everything in there, but those aesthetically that's not gonna float with majority of this town. So hopefully that's, as a DAC member, I'd be more than happy to jump in and get involved, especially with the community on design and making sure that it stays aesthetically accurate with the reason why Alexandria is what Alexandria is. So, because I could see that as a real potential problem if you went ahead and put just a couple of those in residential areas. They're big and garish. The utilities there, I get it, but the aesthetics are not.
So we're just talking about City Hall, Market Square?
No, but I mean, the other bus stops though, aren't we going to start putting, you said 20 more and then there's.
Oh, the shelters.
The
Okay.
shelters. I apologize.
That's okay.
Shelters.
I'm following you.
Nomenclature. My bad.
Yeah, so you're talking about the shelter that's right
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, these are at only 158 stops, and any expansion of that program will be in places that are, they're not gonna be people's front yards. So they'll be at high ridership stops, usually near
Okay.
commercial or
Yeah.
more dense development. So I think there's certainly, we have a long way to go before we would,
Okay, so you don't need any DAC volunteers on that then.
I
Not
don't
yet.
know if you were looking for one in your front yard, but probably not gonna happen for a
Oh,
while.
no, I wish I had one in my front yard because then I don't have to walk as far. But that's all right. That's okay. I can walk a little bit, but
Yeah, if you would just go to the next slide, I think that's the. After that with the,
okay.
so 20 new shelters by 2027. That was citywide. And what I just heard Martin say, I think I'm just repeating, make sure I heard it correctly, is that you're going to prioritize. Well, you'll work with the city because the city installs them, right? But you're going to provide the ridership and say, hey, these are the most frequently used. So the next most frequently used bus stops that are bus stops today, that don't yet have shelters, are probably where those will go.
Yeah, and they're along major corridors. They're really not in residential
I
areas.
use, yeah. I
So Duke Street, Mount Vernon Avenue are
Exactly. Yep.
okay. Is that
Again, easy to message that one.
yeah, okay? So back to the issue of the redesign of the Market Square. Does anybody have any thoughts on what would be most effective? We just, Camilla just sends us the link and we individually respond. Does that sound good enough? I'm not sure a letter will do that much more. I think Dash is already weighed in. And so individually, I think that the greater number of comments we can generate about the importance of amenities for bus riders at that central location. So I'm going to ask you not only to take the survey, but to get your friends to take the survey to ride the bus.
Right.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. It's an action item for us.
I said, we share the social media posts from the city, so feel free to share on your social media.
Yeah.
I can also send that link if you just want to
Yeah.
click and share it. I'll send that to you.
And with respect to bus stops and shelter amenities in general, if you'd send us also the link to the
Interactive.
bus shelter website, that webpage.
Yep.
That's, good idea. Martin mentioned, that was your last slide, right?
I give it for you.
Okay, I actually have something that's going to be related, I think, to the next subject. But back to under reliability, when you mentioned, the slide from 90% to 85% is occurring, increased traffic, increased ridership means more stops, and it means more dwell time at stops. And so certainly for the last two of those three challenges, I'm just thinking out loud here, is the solution, well, to maintain a schedule and not change the schedule, but to maintain the published schedule with increased number of having to make stops and time at stops, that means adding more buses and more drivers, right? I mean, what is the industry way of solving that problem?
Yeah, well, it is a simple math problem, really. I mean, you got the distance of the route is one
Yeah.
thing, you got the speed of the bus,
Yeah.
and you've got the number of buses that you use to circulate on that route. And so we can't really change the distance, unfortunately, that's
Right.
kind of set because of the route. The speed is constrained by traffic and other factors, but there are ways to speed up the buses, such as stop consolidation, such as, TSP signal, traffic signal, stuff. So there are ways to speed up the bus. So we're working on things like that in corridors like King Street. But yes, the most direct and most likely solution that we would need is additional funding, so that, if you have a route that, 5 years ago or, could be operated by 3 buses, but now it's been slowed down by traffic and ridership. Now it needs 4 buses. So that's a whole nother bus that has to be out there all day. So that's an additional, 16 hours of service every weekday. So it's a big number.
Yeah, so my follow-up question is, so going back to at least last year and into this year, the board and I think DAC has said, maintain current service. And what I'm hearing you say that with new constraints, maintaining that service requires additional financial resources. Have you quantified that? In other words, how much money would it take to move the reliability from 85% back to 90%? Which are the routes that are contributing most to that? And what would it take to move the needle? I mean, to me, that
Yes.
has to be if I were city staff, I would want that quantified.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't have the money, I need to know, because worst comes to worst, the problem just keeps getting worse, right? We increase ridership some more, the traffic gets worse. At some point, Dash needs to be able to quantify, hey, to overcome those challenges and maintain current service requires these additional dollars.
So the short answer is yes, we have that number. Basically, it's part of our current services analysis. We were like, if we want to just maintain current service levels, factoring in the additional running times and all that, it would require X number of dollars. So we have provided that information to the city as part of that current services project or submittal
discussion.
But it's kind of been derailed by the fact that we're at this 1% cap, and we're just trying to get by with our CBA mandated increase that Josh was talking about. So it's part of our submission that we provide to the city. However, given where we're at, I'm not overly optimistic that it'll be included.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other part of Martin's presentation before we talk about the other questions for Martin? Okay.
Thank you.
I actually did have a question. I don't know that it's related to what we've been talking about, but I was just wondering if you have started the process of applying for funding for the Bradley improvements that we talked about a couple meetings ago.
That's a good question. So that's a city project that we've been coordinating with them on. I believe they were going to apply through Smart Scale. So I think they should be applying for that in the coming months. I don't think they've applied for it yet. But they would be applying for it soon and would find out hopefully by the start of this next fiscal year if they're going to get it. I know it's more of a long-term project from what I've been led to believe.
Right. I just wasn't sure when the application needed to take place. Thank you.
Okay, up on the agenda, our fiscal year 26 budget preparation, then our 2025 calendar, then open floor.
Yeah, for the budget preparation, I did send a draft of the letter. So feel free to let me know if you have any edits or comments, and we can adjust it.
I'm going to preempt with one comment. And again, I appreciate feedback, whether or not anybody else thinks this is significant enough to change. But based on our September discussion and today's discussion, and the next to last paragraph in this letter, the economic importance or the importance of Dash to the economic health of the city, I think deserves to be mentioned sooner in the letter. And again, I didn't get a chance to send this out ahead of time, but I would ask the other DAC members to consider whether or not they think it's important to say, where we believe the Dash bus system is a crucial component of Alexandria's infrastructure enhancing livability for all residents. Would we consider adding and contributing to Alexandria's economic health? So in other words, it's a crucial component of our infrastructure that not only enhances livability, but also contributes to Alexandria's economic health. Is that worth change worth making? I'm known for a lot of times not making important points. So that's why I asked for other members to either say, no, Jim, we don't need that. It's letter stands as is. And Jim, you've been on city staff and how these are received. It probably doesn't make any difference, does it? Or does it? I'd open it to discussion.
I agree with you. I think that makes a huge amount of difference because it's, you know, when we start talking about the importance of Dash, the economics of is a really important thing to emphasize and emphasize and emphasize. So I think I agree that putting it front and center, I think is a valuable thing to just keep pounding on in all of our
Yeah, I
communications.
mean, that's my thought.
Yeah.
If we think it's important, that in the first paragraph, after we introduce who we are, we should say something about economic
Right,
benefits.
yeah,
So
I think so, yeah.
I agree.
Any comments online or? Jason?
Yeah, I agree. I'm all about aligning the language with the city manager's vocabulary and lexicons. So,
I'm fine with the language. Anytime, you know, studies throw out numbers like this, I'm always a huge skeptic. And it's not that I don't trust them, but is the 180 million, is that annual that we're saying?
I don't have the letter in front of me.
It's an awful lot of money.
That's-
why.
So that's based on, it's, I believe that's for the region, I think.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
because
so
when I,
I'm sorry. That is actually, no, that is correct. That's for the city. And we had calculated a different figure because that includes both Metro Rail, Metro Bus, Dash. That's all public transit.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so if I
annual
was,
tax revenues, and yeah, just annual tax
I
revenues.
just get really hesitant with putting a name behind a number because that's, I mean, if it's public transportation writ large, I don't think we should be taking credit for the full amount.
So the number we have for Dash is 64 million, so we could change that. And that is from a NVTC study that was done.
And I legit study, I got that part, but I think it's I'd much rather stand behind 64 than 180, if that's fair. It's just my thought out loud, and I'm just one person, so.
I'm wondering, well, from a city standpoint, the city has a substantial investment in WMATA. So when you talk to the city, they're going, hey, we already invested, transit. We're putting all this money into
Yeah,
WMATA.
you're saying that.
And so what are they getting for that? So I think the 180 million, what I would like to offer as a friendly amendment is to add to Dash, leave this as is,
Yeah.
and then add a sentence that says Dash's contribution is 64 million. And so they have the public transit
Yeah.
number
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. that
and
would
they have
work
the
out.
Dash. Now it,
Yeah, that's,
everything's on the table.
yeah,
Take
that's,
some skeptics out of the conversation.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's even better. Yeah.
Well, without making the letter too long, I think it puts everything
Yeah.
in the letter.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're okay with adding a
I-
statement
no,
about
I-
economic health in the front section?
I'm fine with it, and I'm not trying to talk
Yeah.
everybody into it, so.
Any comments online about the letter at all, or Jason's suggested change and my opening paragraph suggested change? Okay, with that, the only other change I'm going to mention is, well, this was prepared obviously before today's meeting. It has me signing as the interim chair. I think now that we have a chair, Nathaniel, the names should be flipped. And put his name on that. And I don't know what your practice was with Ross, but getting Nathaniel signed, you guys could work that out. If any other comments?
I think it's funny.
Hearing none, entertain a motion to authorize Nathaniel to sign an updated letter with the two changes as proposed.
Also move, this is Bonnie.
seconded by Bonnie. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
And any abstentions? Okay, you got it? That one. Great. I want to say one more thing about the budget, just as a point of personal privileges. I do want to emphasize, I'm a believer in public input, and we are large representatives of the public input. I thought I had the page called up. Try it again. City of Alexandria website, alexandriava.gov/budget that Josh mentioned. And again, send that out, make sure everybody's got it, because there's some members that aren't here today. There is a budget development calendar. The next milestone is February 25th. That's when the manager presents his budgets. That's when officially we as residents will be notified of what he decided to propose to city council. And then below that are the dates for work sessions and for public hearings. And so there'll be 2 budget work sessions, one in February, one in March. Budget number 3 is in March. Number 4 is in March. Number 5 is in March. And so, yeah, all 5 budget work sessions and probably 2 public hearings will occur before our next meeting. Having just sent this letter, made a decision to send this letter, I think that's a good move forward. In April, we could potentially send another letter to council, but my main point is most of the discussion will occur about the budget will occur before our next meeting. Therefore, I would encourage us as individuals to provide budget comments on the budget between February 25th and our next meeting. It's just a suggestion. I throw it out there. Sorry, I'm so long-winded about that. Okay. Any other fiscal year 26 budget questions? Okay, I think we're next on the DAC 25 calendar.
Yeah, I propose a few dates for the last 3 meetings. So first week of April, the idea was to be able to talk more the full presentation of ATSB. We have the board meeting second week of April, so it'll be before that meeting. Then the first week of September and the first week of November.
So one thing that comes to mind is the first week of September will be like Labor Day. So possible members may be traveling. So that might be a consideration worth
That's
evaluating.
Okay.
maybe the second week.
The second week of the month is when the board meets
Yeah.
Alexandria Transit Commission board meets monthly on the second week.
Yes, so we can meet the third week of September.
And the Transportation Commission meets the third week?
It's usually the third week, yeah.
Third week.
Yeah.
And both those meetings are on Wednesday. So there
Right,
is the
right.
question of day of the week.
Right.
And I guess I have a question, back to the discussion for Martin. From your perspective, meeting with us quarterly, is there a difference between us meeting before an ATCB board versus after? I mean, my sense is you have to prepare board materials by about a week before, typically.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of in that get ready for the board meeting every month. Or is that not a big deal?
In terms of like our workloads, is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Or-
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, as long as, I would say, not the week of, but
Yeah.
the week before would be okay. I mean, a lot of times there's a lot of overlap with what we're sharing with the board and what we share with you all, so it's not too bad usually.
So having something, say on Tuesday of the third week, and I want to avoid Wednesday because Jim has a board and commission, transportation board and commission meeting.
Yeah.
So right now, does anybody see any, go back to the chronological order. Anybody see any issues with the first week of April?
So thinking about ATSD, would it make sense for it to be before, like early April or later April?
Right, so April will be the service plan public hearing at the board meeting. So, you know, that's where members of the public can come talk about the plan. So, you know, I mean, it might make sense to have it before, and then if you guys have additional comments, you can come to the board meeting the following week, where you'll get the whole presentation from me, and then if you want to come back and talk to the board.
Yeah, my sense is we'd like it earlier rather than later.
Yeah, like.
Looking at Jason.
Either the third or fourth week of March. Would that make sense?
Yeah, we can do it. That's why I put it the first week of April, so it was before the board meeting, in case you have all the information and want to go to the board meeting.
And,
But we can do it in March if that gives more time for people to kind of
and
prepare.
then it may be a little bit awkward, but the last week of August might work out better rather than, you know,
In September.
in September, I don't know. If you shift everything by about a week, it might work out better that way. I don't know.
So Jim Essenka is suggesting the last week of March, the last week of August, and the last week of October.
Right, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But for January, stick with
Yeah.
the first early
Right,
January.
right, yeah.
I picked the 14th.
Yeah, but that would be my thing.
But early January.
Yeah.
Comments on that? Okay. Other than, well, given those weeks, and again, I haven't looked at holiday calendars for any religious holidays or anything of those things, but are there day of the week constraints for people?
Preferably not Mondays.
Yeah, we've typically avoided Mondays and Fridays, so and Thursday seems to be a busy night. And so we have tended to meet on either a Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, Tuesday is better, I think.
Tuesday's better?
Yeah.
Okay, so nominally, if you would put that calendar out as the Tuesday night of those weeks. And we certainly have an opportunity to weigh it by email with Nathaniel and Camilla, if anybody's got issues with those.
Okay, perfect. And I'll check also that there's no holidays that week or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're down to open forum, 6:52. I don't know what our schedule is supposed to be, but you would think I would know. Are we supposed to end it?
7.
Yeah, we're doing very well. Right.
Open forum for other topics.
I got a new one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never heard this one. So I noticed last year, I'm a big DC United fan. If you like soccer, you have a new friend. We talk soccer all day long. If you like DC United, and we have a lot of conversation to have, even though they don't win. But they're playing almost on the same days as the baseball team. And what I learned, because I'm a public transportation taker, especially when it comes to games, and the games are Sundays and Saturdays, mostly Saturdays, that both teams, so there's a lot of ridership trying to find rides, creative ways of finding rides on those games. Now, we have those game schedules a year out. Now it's, you know, they're all published right now. And I can't put my finger on the ridership, but I do know that we filled quite a few buses just consistently, just waiting for them. So I don't know if there's ever been, because I know WMATA adjusts to the sports schedule, at least they used to. And I don't know if that's a big enough draw or if the juice is worth the squeeze when it comes to maintenance and hours, but I don't know if that's ever been part of the equation for scheduling.
So to look at the DC United schedule to see.
Yeah, that's a large 20,000 person stadium that's right down the street from the baseball stadium, which has a lot of people also. quite a few. And they all, so the typical Saturday is one of those two starts right before the other because they stagger them. So that, because that part of DC, obviously, you're not going to be able to get both.
Yeah.
You try not to have both going on at the same time, but they're staggered. But still, if you look at the business day or Saturday, you know, there's 6 to 8 hours of just thousands and thousands of people and hundreds of people coming from this area. So, and we don't all start out at the same place necessarily, but I'm just putting that out there as a potential idea. I don't know if there's any way to actually, I can always get dates and maybe this year, just take a glance at what the ridership was just on those dates, just to even see if it's in there. But I did notice there was just some of us that we just ended up taking Uber because bus was either filled or, you know, just couldn't wait that long for it. Or the bus wasn't really necessarily going up back to the normal route, so.
Yeah, that was my first thought, is to look at ridership. I mean, I'd be curious to know what the dates were, because we can
Yeah.
have ridership data, you know, route by route, day
Yeah.
by day, going back
Yeah.
for a couple of years.
Maybe
So
I'll calculate I'll grab some dates and I have no problem doing the data, so you don't have to do the data. I wouldn't do that to you. I'd be more than happy to have you double check my math.
are there specific parts that, are you thinking like, I mean, I'm trying to think, maybe connecting to Potomac Yard and taking the Metro?
Well,
Or
Potomac Yard's in King Street. You know, everybody comes into King Street because we take the Metro in, you know, and then everybody gets dropped off at the Metro. And they just kind of go from there.
Right.
But, you know, sometimes you want to take the Metro, sometimes the Metro's not available too. So, but yeah, bus would be fantastic. But yeah, those two locations for sure.
We just throw in Braddock as well.
Oh, I mean, that'd be a bonus, but
Oh, yeah, just to simplify
yeah.
the work, yeah, just look at those two
Yeah.
and whether or not you're asking for validation of whether or not there's increased ridership on days United at games at those metro stations coming or going.
And their games are always on like Sat. There's never Sunday games.
Almost
right?
always on Saturday. There's a couple Sundays, but
Yeah.
there's like 2 Wednesday games. That's it. So.
Interesting.
Okay. Other open forum, new topics? That's a good one.
I just kind of want to resurface a previous discussion. Like, do we want to have an informal meet and greet between the board members and the DAC members? You know, get to know each other, talk informally about the Dash business. I don't know if there's an appetite for that.
I mean,
Meetings with Dash staff members?
Board and committee meeting.
The board?
That's.
Yeah, it's an open issue that, and thanks for bringing that up. That's a good one. And Ross obviously isn't here. It had been on Ross's action list as chair to try and facilitate some sort of joint meeting and discussion with the Alexandria Transit Company board. And I always thought that was going to be a pretty good idea. I'm very fortunate in that I know a number of the members already, but for those of you that don't in particular, would you like Camilla and Nathaniel to work on setting that up? Something like that? I don't know if that's invite us to a board meeting, you know, formally, or the majority of us could attend and be introduced to the board. What would make sense? I'll tell you what, yeah, I'll just throw the question out there. What would make sense to you, any of you? Jim, you probably know. You're the wrong guy to ask.
Yeah, I'll be the wrong guy to ask. Yeah,
I would say just attend a board meeting,
yeah, actually, yeah.
you know.
I think that gives it, yeah,
Pretty low threat.
You know.
All right,
yeah, that's,
No trust fall.
Yeah, we can, you know, just say, hey, we're part of the advisory committee.
yeah.
yeah,
You want, with us, whatever your issues there. Yeah, that might be.
Maybe the chair could give a presentation about what the DAC does at a
Yeah.
meeting and then just introduce the members, something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, given what Nathaniel said earlier, he wants to meet with each one of us. He wants to work with Camilla to look at And any of us are welcome to do that as well. Look at the DC advisory group and the Maryland group and sort of set a new vision, if you will. Am I capturing that right? Nathaniel, I don't want to put this on your plate if you're not for it,
No.
but I think I heard you say you really want to get to know us, get to know what's possible. And maybe after our April meeting, maybe that could be an agenda item for our April meeting and is a group discussion of that. And so that what we're talking about is after that. So to Bonnie's point, Nathaniel can make a presentation to the board of, in May or June. So look at the second Wednesday of the month in May and June.
Bless you.
God bless you. See if you're available. And let Nathaniel and Camilla know, since that would be a date. And it can be set up in advance, but I would personally suggest it be after Nathaniel's been in the seat for a couple of months.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, yeah.
Get us started.
Everyone's
do think-
always to attend the board meetings. They're
Yeah,
up to you.
I was gonna say if you haven't attended one of the February meetings, it's also a shareholder meeting with the city council, I would encourage you to attend that one. And if you're going to attend the February meeting, if you let Camilla know, she can let the board chair know, so he can introduce you individually. As you know, we have a couple of members of the DAC here today, and I want to introduce them. I mean, David really likes to introduce the DAC, and you've seen that in public meetings. And so anybody who's planning on attending the February meeting, I just ask you to make sure that information can go to Camilla to
Yeah,
get to David.
yeah, and I don't know if
Or
anyone,
Josh.
yeah,
Josh would introduce.
yeah, I don't know if anyone is, like, everyone should be receiving the notifications when we have board meetings. But if not, if it makes more sense for me to send like an email to the group, I can do that, like, hey, the next board meeting is this date. What the location, I can send the link to the board packet. So I'm happy to do that too.
That would make a lot of sense, if you can just provide that information, because I think a lot of us know some of the basics, but the specifics, I think, are necessary to see. Dive our naggles a little bit.
Of course, yeah, and there's always a virtual option. If you're not able to attend, you can always kind of join.
Yeah,
Zoom.
I don't, as an individual or as a DAC member, I don't think I get notified when the
Board meetings.
board meeting
Yeah.
dockets are posted.
Oh, yeah, not posted. We send an email letting them know, like, hey, this is date of the board.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
but not.
that would be great to add.
But yeah, I can add the link to the board packet.
Okay. I think that was a vet offered that one. That was a good one. Eric?
Yeah, I'd just like to say a quick thanks to Dash for providing a bus for the residents at the Olympus condos. We had a 2-alarm fire back in October. We all had to evacuate the building for several hours, and there was a bus provided. I guess the police arranged it for it to be parked there and people could get on the bus, because the whole promenade was, shut down and roped off by fire department and police. So no, we have a lot of families, with kids, and they were able to get on the bus, eat, and, relax until we were able to get back in the building. So really appreciated that.
A lot of older people too. Probably,
Yeah,
that-
so.
Very good.
Thank you.
Nathaniel? I'd like to close by, again, congratulating you and thanking you for stepping into your new role.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah. Good job.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Uh,
Are-
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much.
See you last week
Thank you.
in March.
Thanks,
then.
guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay.